Okay, I just wanted to start off by saying I'm not a licensed pilot, so anything you hear me say in the way of instructions, don't try it at home. Well, try it at home, kids, if you got a simulator, but don't try it in a real airplane because it could be disastrous results. So what we're going to do is a simple flight around my home airport, which is in London, Ontario. It has the call sign CYXU. And since I'm just going to land at the same airport, we'll select the same airport again. Okay, now there's the airplane that we're going to be flying. It's a Daher TBM 930. It comes from France. It's got a jet engine under the cowling here that drives the propeller through a gearbox. And the prop spins at around 2,500 RPM. As opposed to the very high speed that the jet engine rotates at. So, first thing I'm going to do is go to flight conditions. I have to say, when it does live weather, it actually goes out on the internet and tries to find what the current conditions are at the place you're flying out of. And you can see it's got the current time here. And the problem is, on a day like today where there's a bit of drizzle, a bit of rain, Microsoft 2020 seems to go overboard, and it reduces the visibility to like half a mile and drops the ceiling almost right down to the ground, and on occasion adds a bit of fire and brimstone, in other words thunder and lightning, when there isn't any in the area. So best to kind of avoid that, and for the purposes of demonstration. So we'll go into custom weather and turn off live weather right here, and now we've got a choice of clear skies or scattered, broken, overcast, that kind of thing. So I'm going to say scattered clouds, and I want to use runway 09, which you see up here anyway. So I'm going to, let's see, what we're going to do, add a wind layer. So I'm going to make the wind come out of the west, sorry, the east. Runway 09 is 90 degrees magnetic, which is straight east. And it comes up here as 90 degrees, and then we can set the speed. Yeah, might as well dial in a little bit of wind. It's not very much, it's barely a breath, but anyway. And we can also look at the cloud base, where it actually is sitting, and it says that the bottom of the cloud is down to 1,640 feet. Well, that's a little low. Let's crank that up if we can. I guess we can't. We can take the top. Okay, I think I know what's going on here. There we go. So let's set it at around 5,000 feet. Okay, that'll do, 4,390. It has tops that go up to 10,000 feet. So everything, okay, now it's changed the time. I don't know why. Okay, it's saying our local time is the same as Universal Coordinated Time, which is Greenwich. That's not right. But nevertheless, we're still in daylight here, as we can see from the map. Now, there are different ways you can choose to navigate. One is VFR, which is Visual Flight Rules. That means you're hand flying all the time and using some instruments to kind of guide you, but you're actually flying it. But what we're going to do is an IFR flight, Instrument Flight Rules, low altitude airways. And so over here, and by the way, you can see that it's dialed in the actual wind. And this may be live, actually downloading it. It's 94 degrees, so it's just a little bit off the runway at 12 knots. I'm going to choose something called RNAV 09 here. Now you notice these are the choices for London. ILS 15 means Instrument Landing System, and the Instrument Landing System is one that's ground-based. So at the end of the runway, there's a radio system that transmits to the aircraft and guides it down, both laterally, that is, they call it a localizer, to line you up with the runway. and also a glide slope or a glide path, which brings you down from whatever altitude you're at down to the runway. And pilots typically don't let the airplane land itself. They let it, or they take it off of autopilot and put it on the ground themselves by hand. And that same applies for this RNAV. Now, RNAV, rather than being based on ground-based radio navigation aids, it's based on strictly on GPS. And it does also provide you with a bit of a glide path or a glide slope, as well as a localizer to get you on the runway. So we'll do an RNAV this time. And what it does is it comes up here. You can see CYXU is the departing airport, CYXU is the arrival airport, and it's given us 3 GPS waypoints, which have these funny names. That's kind of standard in the aviation industry. And that's and it's also shown us a route here that we're going to come around. We're going to take off to the east, come around, and then land toward the east again on runway 09. Now it's giving a different number. It's saying it's 270 at 5 knots. So I'm not sure what this program's doing. But realistically, we would fly out for a ways at the runway heading and then turn and then join this route. But it's shown a kind of a shortcut here. And that magenta color indicates the GPS route that's outlined up here. So I think that's it. No, actually we're going to start cold and dark, as they say. The airplane's turned off, and we're going to put it on a ramp. Doesn't matter which one, we'll just say that one. And yeah, our approach is set up. So let's go fly. Yes, we're ready to fly. So there's our airplane sitting on the ramp. Suddenly our pushback guy is there, ready to give us a hand. So just to look at the airplane from the outside, you'll see I'm pulling back on the stick that pushes the elevators up, and then pushing forward pushes them down. Kick the left rudder, kick the right rudder, and left aileron, right aileron. So we can kind of spin around here and have a look at our surroundings. Didn't want to go quite that high. So there goes the fuel truck. So there's runway 09. We're going to go out on that. You can see from the windsock over here, there's hardly any wind at all. It's just a slight crosswind. So let's go inside the airplane. And as I say, cold and dark. Let's set it up. So first thing we got to do is go up to the panel up here. Turn on the battery. And we'll set the generator ready. Whoop. Very touchy. And whoops, over here, gonna make sure the autopilot is powered up. Fuel selection, it's automatic, so it switches between the left and right tanks as needed on a regular basis. And the fuel pump's ready to go. So if we look down here, this is called the
test. Okay.
Yeah, I know. This is called the Garmin 3000 system. You'll find it in other airplanes. It's not just particular to this one. So we'll turn on the multifunction display there, and I'm going to make this column disappear for a moment. This has
Good morning. Okay.
yeah, I know. It's telling us really we should put on the pitot heat. What the pitot is, the pitot tubes tell you how fast you're going, or help determine how fast you're going. And when you're flying out, you might turn on the inertial separator here. It just kind of keeps crap from getting into the engine. Now, one annoying thing, since Microsoft updated the software this October, just a couple of weeks ago, I found now that unless I turn off the parking brake, oh, it's still going. So there's no winning. I must probably just the oil pressure. So let's turn that back on. And just want to zoom into this panel down here. We set it to MFD, which is the multifunction display, this one, which shows us where we are. We can look at the flight plan, and it'll load it in a second. This is what we automatically loaded. You could also load this on the ground here manually, or even when you're in the air, decide you're going to do an RNAV approach and load the waypoints manually. But they're already loaded here. There's the airport, there's the first waypoint, second waypoint, and third waypoint, and then finally runway 09. And so if we go home, let's go home, and then to procedures, where we can just make sure that our approach is set up correctly. It's set up for, it's wrong. We want to click on that, I think. Yeah, there we go. RNAV 9, that's the one we want. And we can load that in. So we're not actually activating it yet. So let's start the airplane up. Say this is a jet engine, so it's a little different from a normal prop plane with a piston engine. So first the ignition is on, so we're going to get the starter going. And then we're going to go down here. I'm going to back out a little bit. And sorry about all the flickering around. I'm watching over here. Once that hits 13, then I move this to high idle. Now in this position, the prop is feathered. In other words, it's not pulling the airplane forward. And once we get into the green here, we can move it over into taxi position, which now unfeathers the prop. It's actually trying to pull us forward, but we have the parking brake on. Let's just temporarily turn that off. See if that kills that. Yeah, that was what was doing it. So we're only at idle. So the airplane's not moving. Let me just back out a little bit. Now, up here is the autopilot. This is where you set altitude and heading. And using this nav button, I'll just zoom in a bit. Using the nav button is where you tell it, okay, follow the GPS or some other navigation aid. In this case, it's on VOR. We've got to switch it over to GPS. Sometime today would be nice. There we go. GPS, and it's telling us here our first waypoint is where we're going to fly to from the airport to that first GPS waypoint. Now up here is the altitude that we're going to fly to as set in the autopilot. So I'm going to set it to 3,000 feet. Just by rotating this wheel. It takes a while with the mouse, it's very slow. But hell, we've got lots of fuel. We can just sit here and burn it. Now, it won't take off, or it won't go to that altitude until you set what's called a vertical speed in feet per minute. So you'll see a number come up in this area and over here as well, saying what it's set to. And I'm going to set it to 1,000 feet per minute. So that'll take 3 minutes to get to 3,000 feet, in other words. Except the airport is already at, as you can see here, that's our actual altitude, 910 feet above sea level. This is all corrected to sea level. So there, it's set at 1,000, so that stays on. We haven't activated the autopilot yet. That's from this. I'm going to set this bank on because that gives you a nice gentle banking instead of crazy banking. Now, heading, we're going to set it to the runway heading, and I'll leave that until we actually get on the runway, because you can just click it and then it'll automatically set this heading to whatever this says. and that so that we can fly out on the runway heading and just let the autopilot take us in that direction. So next thing is we'll stop it here and then come back and we'll talk to the ground station to get our taxi instructions. Okay, and we're back. So before we talk to ground, just thought I'd mention I've played with all the controls on this, and I find the turning radius extremely wide. So if you see me going off into the grass during taxiing, don't blame me. It's something I've tried to get around. And the other thing is, it's almost comical how in this day and age, how they can't seem to get a very smooth sounding simulated voice or robotic voice for the ground controllers, and they you'll see what I mean as we go along. But anyway, let's get our taxiing instructions here. First, that sets our radio to their frequency, and then we can request our clearance.
London ground, Dair Alpha Sierra X-ray
that's me
Golf,
supposedly
Sierra Alpha
talking.
IFR to London, ready to copy.
That's not too bad, but the controllers sound very...
Sierra X-ray Golf, Sierra Alpha is cleared to London Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 09er climb and maintain 1,000 feet. Departure frequency is 135.3 squawk 0261.
Okay, and then I'm to acknowledge it, so I click on that.
Dair Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf, Sierra Alpha cleared to London Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 09er climb and maintain 1,000 feet. Departure on 135.3 squawk 0261.
Okay.
Golf Sierra Alpha, read back correct. Contact ground on 121.9er. Good day.
Okay, a couple of things I thought I'd explain here. This is totally ridiculous. It says fly. This is probably a glitch. Maybe they haven't modeled London Airport very well. They say climb and maintain 1,000 feet. Well, 1,000 feet is only 90 feet above our actual altitude above sea level. So we'd be sort of hovering above the trees, which is ridiculous. So I've set us to 3,000 feet, and eventually they'll tell us to go to 3,000 feet. But anyway, I just thought I'd describe what these are. 135.3, that's the radio frequency for Toronto Centre. Once you're outside of the control zone for London, you have to talk to Toronto. And squawk code is a radar transponder, so that they can track you on radar from Toronto to keep you separated from other traffic, of course. So let's request our taxi information. Well, first of all, before I forget, I'm going to set takeoff flaps to the first notch. And you'll see this little guy come down here. That's showing it's in takeoff position. So let's request our taxi information.
London ground, Dair Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf, Sierra Alpha with whiskey ready to taxi IFR.
He doesn't really have booze. Whiskey is...
Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf, Sierra Alpha taxi to and hold short of runway 09er via taxiway Charlie Bravo. Contact tower on 119er decimal, 4 when ready.
Whiskey is just as it means W. That's the code name for the conditions for that day. You know, the wind direction, which runway's active, and all that sort of stuff. So he doesn't actually have booze on board. So this is an alcohol-free flight, and it's very short too, anyway. So wait, we've got to acknowledge that. Acknowledge.
Taxiing hold short runway 09er via taxiway Charlie Bravo Dair Golf Sierra Alpha.
Now I should probably request a pushback. Let's go outside the airplane and have a look. Just to give me a bit more room, because the turning radius sucks on this thing. So I'm going to ask ground services to give me a pushback.
London ground, Dair Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha requesting pushback.
I'm going to check my parking brakes
Alpha
off.
Sierra X-ray Golf, Sierra Alpha pushback request accepted.
There he goes. Hopefully that stupid fuel truck moves as well. And then we have to be ready to ask him to stop. Looks awfully dangerous, doesn't it? Coming awfully close to that prop. Yikes. He's missed it. Where are you going, buddy? I think he's a bit confused. No, there's nothing there to push back on. So. There you go. Now you found it. Okay. What a pretty airplane. I like it. It's damn fast, too. You notice we're also seeing all of our... okay, I'm going to ask him to stop in a minute. Because this thing has a lousy turning radius. Okay, I'm going to push back.
London
Stop.
ground Dair Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha requesting the end of pushback.
Dair Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha request to end pushback received.
You notice in this view you get all the instruments. You get the compass, airspeed, engine, torque, and so on. Flaps condition, trim on the nose. Actually, I'm going to trim that down a little bit if I can. I find the airplane sometimes wants to take off by itself. They still do that. Okay. These blue lines that we're seeing here, blue arrows I should say, over here, are telling us what direction to go to. And I'm not going to go where they say because there's our runway. That's all I got to do is go over there and stop. So let's go back inside where it's quieter. And I'm going to throttle up a little bit. Just give it a bit of a blast to get us moving. And try to get around this truck. Head over to this taxiway. Move this up. And raise my seat. In theory, you're supposed to follow the yellow lines. And we can't just get on the runway yet. We have to do what's called a hold short, and that's what this dashed line means. The one we're just coming up to now. And I'm putting on the toe brakes to bring us to a stop. Go back here. I don't know why I have to click everything twice. 3 times maybe. Here we go. So we can now tune to London Tower, who will give us the clearance for takeoff. And we can request it.
London Tower Dair Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha ready for IFR departure runway 09er. Dair Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha altimeter 29er decimal 9er to wind 279er at 8. Cleared for takeoff runway 09er.
Okay, so our altimeter is right here. That's important to set that right so that your altitude is correctly indicated. Oh, the wind is not 279 at 8. Come on, I changed that. You would never tell someone the wind...
Golf Sierra Alpha, did you copy?
Yeah, I did. I think you're all wet, pal.
Cleared for takeoff runway 09er Dair Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha.
They're saying the wind is coming from behind us, and yet we're getting clearance to take off in the direction of the wind. That never happens. So it's a buggy program still. Okay, just give that a bit of a blast. Whoa. This airplane does want to tend to run away. And I'm going to come to a stop there because it's very jerky today, I don't know. So the idea is to get on the center line, line it up with the foot pedals. We're going to stop there. Okay, so we've now changed over from recording in 4K to recording in HD, because that was causing too much of a resource problem for this old computer. Kind of brought it to its knees, and everything was very stuttery, as you could see. So hopefully it'll be a little better from here on in. So let's go inside the aircraft. We've already been given clearance apparently to take off. So put the toe brakes on. Throttle up. Should get up to about 50% here. And then off we go. Rotor pedals are very sensitive on this. So we're looking on the left side of the primary flight display here. We're looking for about 80 to 90 knots before we take off. Just crossing the other runway now. Okay, there we go. Why don't we jerky takeoff? Gear up. I'm going to try to climb at about 1,000 feet a minute. Flaps up. And this little number down here, RA, that says our actual height above the ground as opposed to sea level. So when we get that to about 1,000 feet, then it's probably safe to, it will be safe, I should say, to put on the autopilot. There's our handoff. Good day to you.
135.3 Dayer Golf Sierra Alpha.
Okay, we're about 1,000 feet now, almost. Autopilot on. Get the heading. Runway heading. Bit stubborn, this thing, sometimes. Okay, so let's talk to Toronto, and they'll give us clearance to get on our approach.
Toronto Center Dayer Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Alpha is at 2,300 feet, descending 1,000 feet.
No, we're not.
Delta Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Alpha Toronto Center altimeter 29.9 continuous planned.
Okay, so
Golf Sierra Alpha, you are 4 miles east. Climb and maintain 3,000 feet. Keep speed down about 210 knots. Expect RNAV runway 09 approach via Palatine transition. Clear to Palatine.
oh, they got it right this time. The last time I tried this, they gave the wrong transition point. Okay.
Climb and maintain 3,000 feet. Keep speed not above 210 knots. Expect RNAV runway 09er approach via Aleti transition. Clear to Aleti Dayer Golf Sierra Alpha.
Well put, pal. Okay. So, you notice now they're saying climb to 3,000 feet. First it was 1,000 feet, which is ridiculous. Okay, let's hit the nav button here. And you notice the airplane is starting to turn now, and I'm going to hit this bank button. That's awfully steep. The bank button actually reduces the banking angle to about 30 degrees, I think, so it's a bit more comfortable. So let's see if we...
Generic 2 Charlie Alpha, contact Cleveland Center on 132.25. Good day.
See all those, there. Okay, there's the airport, CYXU, and there's the magenta line that represents...
Going to 132.25, generic 2 Charlie Alpha.
represents the track that we're going to eventually get on to do this approach, this RNAV approach. So the airplane's still turning. And there's actually trees in southwestern Ontario. I didn't believe it. I thought they were all gone for farmland. There you go. So I'll look over here. Oh, very nice. So what we'll do is, once we're straightened out, you can see we're heading for this part of the course here. And if I just zoom out a little further, you can see the whole landing pattern here. So there's 3 waypoints. One you don't see because that aircraft is on final. But we're going to join this line here. So once we do, I'll restart the video. Okay, so here we are a little closer to our first waypoint, which is at Liti. And just looking at the active flight plan here, it says that when we're at Liti, we have to be at 3,000 feet. Vimsa, which is the next one, that's up around this next turn, 3,000 feet still, and then down to 2,000 feet for Kiksiv, which is right on the approach path. And it says runway 09. So if we go back here, look at procedures, and this is for the approach itself. It says RNAV 09. So that's good. And so what we would have to do is click activate approach when we were ready to start descending on the approach path, and then we'd also hit this button up here, the approach mode. But for now we're going to continue on the nav mode, which will direct us to all 3 of the waypoints. So fairly pleasant flying. It's not too bad. You can see this wheel down here, the pitch trim. The autopilot is having to automatically adjust that to keep us at flying straight and level. And that's something, if you're hand flying, that's something you would adjust by hand to get the nose to generally go down or generally go up, so that you don't have to pull on the yoke or push on the yoke to keep the thing flying level. So coming up to Liti, and actually our speed is way too high. I'm gonna, by this point, throttle back a bit. And I heard it said by a guy who flies one of these on a YouTube posting he did, that it's really hard to get this plane to slow down, and I've found that too. So I'd like to get it down to about 130 knots if I can. That makes it a little bit safer to deploy flaps and landing gear. Although you can deploy them at higher speeds than that, but gets the airplane stable sooner. Now, one thing I'll point out about this approach, it's weird. I don't think they've modeled London CYXU Airport very carefully, because if we follow the glide path that's established by this approach, we'll end up going into the trees in front of the runway. Now, whether those trees are really there or not, I don't know. But what I'll probably do is take it off autopilot long before, and then sort of hop over the trees and drop down, hopefully not crash and burn like I almost did yesterday when I tried this. Okay, get that speed down.
Delta Golf Sierra Alpha, you are 11 miles west of London. Contact London Tower on 119.41 inbound.
Tower on 119.4 Golf Sierra Alpha.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to call the tower first.
London Tower Dair Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Alpha 11 miles west inbound RNAV runway 09 approach.
Delta Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Alpha London Tower. Altimeter 29.9, 2 with 279 is 8. Cleared RNAV runway 09 approach.
Here we go again. They got the wind wrong. I changed it to 09. And
Cleared RNAV runway 09 approach Dair Golf Sierra Alpha.
Very buggy program still. Very buggy. A year later, and it's still buggery. Excuse me. Still buggered up. Okay, so I've adjusted 2,000 feet here, and now I'm going to start down toward that. because we have to get down to that next waypoint. We have to be at 2,000 feet, I should say, by the time we get to the next waypoint. And the speed has come down nicely to about 130. It's still dropping, actually. And looks like we're 8 miles out from the runway. Ugh, of course, they're going to give us a low ceiling so we can't see where we're going. Or is this going the wrong way? Oh dear. I set it to climb rather than fall. Let's hope we can get to 2,000 feet by the time we hit Kiksiv. Get our throttle back a little bit more. I'm going to hit the first notch of flaps, gear down.
Charter Golf, Sierra Alpha, wind 279er at 8. Clear to land runway 09er.
Clear to land runway 09er Dair Golf Sierra Alpha.
And I'm going to get the full flaps here. Let's get us down quickly. Are we going to get there fast enough? I don't think so. So I'm going to accelerate our descent a bit here. So I'm going to activate the approach down here and here. Let's see if it even works. Feet on the rudder pedals. Okay, so we should get our speed down to about 90. Looks like it's taking us down. We're below 2,000 feet now. As I say, I don't trust this, so I'm going to take this off of autopilot. Hand fly this. You see, we've got trees obstructing the runway, which is totally ridiculous. Our approach speed's pretty good. It's stable at 95. Seems like we've got some... It always does this. Of course, it's detecting terrain, so it says don't sink, which is... I'll never understand that. Of course, we're descending. We're going to get close to terrain. Okay, so we're full flaps, gears down. Controls on this are ultra sensitive, which is a problem. We've got a bit of crosswind or something going on. We actually may have a tailwind because of what they're saying, which is you never fly with a tailwind. See, we got to drop down over these trees, which is kind of crazy. Throttling back. Bounced twice. Oh well. Okay, let's put the brakes on. We could use reverse thrust. I think brakes are going to do it.
Charter Golf, Sierra Alpha exit runway when able.
Now let's see if we end up in the grass here. This thing is goofy. Sometimes it just doesn't give you short enough turning circle to make the turn. Okay, we'll just approach it really slowly, and that should do it for us.
Golf, Sierra Alpha, turn next taxiway.
I am. Keep your knickers on. I think we're gonna stay on the runway, or the taxiway this time. What do you know?
Golf, Sierra Alpha, contact ground on 121.9er.
121.9er Dayer Golf Sierra Alpha.
I'm gonna come to a stop here. Talk to ground. Request taxiing to parking.
London ground Dayer Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha taxi to parking.
Delaware Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha taxi to general aviation parking via taxiway Alpha cross runway 15 Bravo cross runway 09er Charlie.
Taxiing to general aviation parking using taxiway Alpha cross runway 15 Bravo cross runway 09er Charlie Dayer Golf Sierra Alpha.
To hell with staying on the yellow line. I'm going to do what I have to turn without going into the grass. There we go. Now we're going to cross runway 15. But since it's not the active runway, you can do that without having to stop and look for traffic. Since we're going uphill here, we have to give it a little bit of fuel. So right now the aircraft is being steered by foot pedals, the rudder pedals, and as I say, they're a little oversensitive, even though I've adjusted them down in the program, so makes for challenging steering sometimes. Okay, there's the runway 1533. We're going to cross that and make a right turn up here toward the general aviation parking. Put some brakes on here. So you use the toe brakes to slow yourself down. Hopefully I can make this turn. Brought myself right to a stop. And I'm going to start my turn early here. Now, if I'm not mistaken, they try to take you back out onto the active runway, which is 09. That's straight ahead of us, going left to right, in order to go back to the parking area. At least that's what it did before. It looks like maybe it's corrected now. And that was absolutely ridiculous. You know, they would never send you out on an active runway to taxi down to a parking area via a different taxiway, because there's a taxiway just way on the left here that takes us to parking. And maybe they got it right this time. I don't know. Let's just slow down and have a look. Yeah, this is our taxiway here. See, they are taking you right out to the runway if you follow the blue arrows. But we're going to make a left turn here because this will take us directly to the parking area without going on the active runway. Oh, Microsoft, will you please fix some of these stupid problems? Also, when you're leaving for a flight, when you're taxiing toward takeoff, they send you out onto one runway and then back onto a taxiway and then to your active runway. just totally unnecessary. You could have just stayed on taxiways and made it all the way to your active runway. Okay. Oh, now it says, oh, you're going this way? Okay, well, we'll show you how to get there. Just going to switch to the outside view for a moment. Bring flaps up. Stay with the tour, Gord. Okay, there we go. And we're gonna slow it down here. Well, what do you know? They got a box. That blue box is waiting for us. They're gonna wave us in. Let's go back inside and give it a bit of wally here. ATC anymore, so be gone. Yeah, we're not quite making the turns here. Full left rudder. No, sorry guy. Okay, I'm stopping. That's it. So, turn off ignition. Put down and feather the props and, whoop, not that way. Shut down. So sorry about that scary landing, but that's par for the course when you got a tailwind and you're trying to land. Anyway, thanks for flying along.